happy Monday, everybody. It is September the 16th, 2024, and we are coming to you live from the beautiful city of New Orleans in Louisiana from the United Public Radio Network at 107.7 FM and the UFO Paranormal Radio Network at 105.3 FM. We are on Roku, we are on Facebook, and we are on YouTube. We have a spectacular guest tonight, and I'm going to just skirt right into it. Preston, go.
Thank you, Dolly. Thank you, everyone, for joining us tonight on episode 73 of The Light Gate. I'm super excited about our guest tonight. We're going to get right to it because he's only going to be here with us for the first half of the show. But yeah, I'm your host, Preston Dennett. My lovely co-host is Dolly Safran. And normally I would spend some time saying hello to all you folks in chat, but our guest is so amazing. And we have an abbreviated time with him tonight that I'm just going to get right to it. And our guest tonight is Stephen Simon. And we're going to be talking about his amazing book, What Dreams May Come. It's a fabulous book. I just read it. It's very moving. It's definitely something all of us should read. And just for a little bit about Stephen, he's going to introduce himself. But I do want to let you know that he's produced such acclaimed projects, the Academy Award winning What Dreams May Come, starring Robin Williams and Cuba Gooding Jr., an amazing movie. Also Somewhere in Time with Christopher Reeve and Jane Seymour, and a bunch of other movies. All the Right Moves, Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, She's Out of Control. I mean, it goes on. But I'm just going to bring him on because I think he can talk more about himself than I can, and I am just so excited to have him on. So let's bring him on. Stephen, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for coming.
How you doing? It's great to see you both, and I'm very happy and honored to be with you.
Thank you.
So here's your book, What Dreams Have Come. And wow, what a book. So moving. Really an amazing story of your connection with your wife, Lauren. And so we'll get to that in a second. But I want to, like I always tell our guests, I don't like to blindside them. I let you know beforehand. I always like to ask our guests how they grew up. You know, in their childhood, did you have paranormal experiences? What led you onto this amazing pathway to bring you to where you are now?
Well, actually, with me, it's a really great question because this all started when I was about either 5 or 6 years old. So my father, my birth father, was a producer and a director and a studio executive in the 40s and made movies with Lucille Ball and the Marx Brothers and a bunch of other stars like that. Unfortunately, he died very suddenly in 1950 when I was 4. My mother remarried another film producer who was working at MGM at the time. So I was born into the film industry. When I was 5 or 6 years old, I started telling my mother and my stepfather that there was a man in my wall at night. And they were like very taken aback. You know, this is 1951. And they were like, "Are you scared? Do you want us to do something?" And I said, No, I'm not scared. He's great. He's wonderful. I love him. He's wonderful. I just wanted you to know he's there. It wasn't until 20 years later that I realized that that was my dad. And that my dad was still there for me. And that began my life and my journey into actually becoming a filmmaker who would focus on bringing spiritual subject matter into Hollywood as best I could. I grew up loving movies like It's a Wonderful Life, The Ghost and Mrs. Muir, Lost Horizons, that people thought were fantasy films. And to me, they were just glimpses of things that we all experience in one way or another. I was fascinated by that. I went through a lot of different things when I was younger. I'm not going to waste time doing that. I actually became a lawyer. Please forgive me. I don't do that anymore. You know, I don't have to go to meetings and confess that I was a lawyer anymore. But I was a lawyer for a short period of time until I read this book called Bid Time Return by Richard Matheson, one of the deans of what is generally called fantasy literature, which I call spiritual literature. And I was fascinated and I just knew that that's what I needed to do and get into the film business. So I begged my way into a job with a wonderful producer named Ray Stark. And the very first thing I did when he hired me as his assistant was to call the agent for Richard Mathis and say, I've got to have a lunch with him about the book. And we did. And Richard became my mentor. And I told Richard, I don't know how to produce movies yet, but when I do, I'm learning from one of the best. I want this to be my first film. And 3 years later, that's what happened with Somewhere in Time, which
Wow.
the title that we had because Big Time Return just did not work as a title. So we retitled it Somewhere in Time. There's a lot of great stories around Somewhere in Time, which I won't waste time with you guys about tonight. But that started my journey into making these movies. As I've always said to people, mainstream is lost on me. It's not that I don't appreciate great big mainstream movies. Top Gun Maverick is, I think, one of the greatest action movies ever made. I love watching those movies, but I'm not attracted to them as a filmmaker. I've been attracted to things that are definitely not mainstream. Somewhere in Time was not mainstream. Somewhere in Time bombed when it went into the theaters for all kinds of reasons.
No, really? Wow.
Years for it to resurface, and then it became kind of an evergreen and one of those cult films that people either love or they hate. And to me, that is making movies. You want to make movies that people say, God, I love that movie, or I hated that movie. What was wrong with those people? You want people to have strong feelings rather than like having it just be like a Chinese food and you're hungry 30 minutes later. That was okay. I don't want to do okay. I never wanted to do okay.
I loved the movie, by the way.
It astounded me. I mean, it profoundly affected me. I saw it in the theater when it came out, and I walked out the door thunderstruck by it. I mean, really.
You were the one that went to the theater.
Yeah, I'm the one. Yep.
Well, thank you for that. I mean, we were really going after making a 1940s melodramatic love story. If this had been then, it wouldn't have been Chris Reeve, it would have been Jimmy Stewart. That is what we had in mind. And the audience, it was the 1980 when it came out. The audience wasn't ready for that movie at that point, but it did finally regain its audience. And today, every year in October, the whole hotel that we shot that at, the Grand Hotel, is devoted to the fans of Somewhere in Time. And they come from all over the world. They bring 1912 costumes with them. And the whole weekend at the hotel, which sells out every year, is focused on that. When we were shooting Somewhere in Time, Richard Matheson gave me the galleys for what was going to be his next book, which was What Dreams May Come. And I read it in one night, and I said to him, Richard, I don't know how long it's going to take me to do this, but I've got to do this movie. I have to figure out how to do it. And he said, you think you can actually turn this into a movie? And I said, yep, I don't know how. That started a 20-year journey in my life. It took me 20 years to get What Dreams May Come made. We could fill several hours of conversations about all of the false starts that we had. And it was a wildly controversial movie when it came out. I mean, wildly controversial. Talk about people that are loving it or hating it. I am so proud of what we did with that film because we introduced people to a concept of the afterlife that, particularly now that after I've written this book with my wife, starting 6 months after she transitioned to the other side, I now know that what we were after was something that is reflected in the afterlife, which is that which we believe here is true when we transition as well. That which you think becomes your world. And that film was like, well, yes, she chose this existence for her to be in this terribly frightening environment because there was some growth that she wanted to do, not that she had to do it. And what could be more than romantic than a man or a woman looking for their spouse in the afterlife and be literally willing to go through hell to find them? It's a tremendously emotional, romantic movie. Now, what are they both about? Somewhere in Time and What Dreams May Come. What are they both about? They're about a man, could have been a woman searching for her husband. In this case, a man searching for his wife after his wife has transitioned.
Right.
And in somewhere in time, they weren't married, but they were soulmates. And in What Dreams May Come, they were married. So then life imitated art, imitated life. I met my wife, Lauren, at a screening, actually, of What Dreams May Come, 5 years later after it had been released. And it's so interesting when we look back on that night, and we talk about it in the book. We met in the lobby of the theater, and I took one look at her, and she took it. It felt like we just stood there and stared at each other. We had both been through two very unsuccessful marriages. We had both determined we were never going to get married again, probably never date again. And in that moment, we looked at each other and we both thought, because we talked about it later, I found him. I found her. We've been together for lifetimes. My goodness, it was all planned for now.
Yeah, that gave me chills when I read that in the book.
That's how Lauren and I met. And she went home that night and called her surrogate mom and said, I met my guy. And I went home that night and told my daughters, who I was raising on my own at that point, I met her. I met the perfect person for me. And 3 years later, we got married.
Wow.
And we were always together 24/7. Lauren, when she was physical, was a therapist. She still is on the other side in a different way. And then January 3rd, 2018, I woke up one morning, went to the gym, as I always did, very early. I've always been a very early riser. Came home, noticed that Lauren was still asleep. It was around 7 o'clock, 7:30. But she had been up later than I had been the night before watching something on television. So I thought I would let her sleep. I got involved in something. And then a little while later, I got worried and I went up and I found that she had transitioned in her sleep. And she was only 54. I was 17 years older than Lauren. And we always talked about what would happen in that moment. Lauren is a very spiritual being. We talked a lot about what our afterlife experience would be together. Lauren channeled a lot. And one night in April of 2017, before the year before she transitioned, she went into trance and she said, honey, we've got to design our afterlife. And I want it to be very specific. You need to write it down. And I did. She knew something was coming. I know she knew something was coming. And we had talked about how we were going to connect. Nothing happened after that, after I found her that morning, about us reconnecting for 6 weeks, other than me being in what tens of millions of people go through all the time. I was in shock. I had PTSD from finding her, and I was just mired in the depth of grief. One night, I called my dear friend Neil Donald Walsh, who many of you know wrote the Conversations with God books. And Neil and I have always considered each other brothers from a different mother. And I called Neil. I was crying so hard and he knew it was me from the phone number and everything else. And he just sat and waited, didn't say a word. Finally, I got out to him, Neil, I'm out of my mind with grief. And he said, good, Stephen, good. You need to be out of your mind and in your heart. That is what began the next part of the journey, because soon after that, and we talk about it in more detail in the book, so I won't go into all of it now. Soon after that, Lauren made herself known to me in a very specific way. And I knew it was her. No, I thought it was her. I believed it was her, but I doubted. You know, I doubted. Here in my heart, I didn't doubt. But it's like, am I doing this? And because I've heard from so many people all over the world that have had this experience, we all, if we're honest with ourselves in the beginning, have some doubts. You know, am I doing this to comfort myself? Am I making this all up because I can't deal with the trauma of my wife transitioning suddenly like that? Is this real, or am I making it all up?
Yep, I know the feeling.
We started having those discussions, and Lauren started telling me a lot of things about my experience, about her experience, and I started writing them down because I wanted to make sure I didn't forget what she had said. And I was so traumatized at that point that I thought, if I don't write these things down, I'm never going to remember them, and I want them. So it started with yellow pads, and I started filling up yellow pad after yellow pad after yellow pad. So in September of that year, I went to Ashland, Oregon. I live just outside of Portland, Oregon. I went to Ashland to visit one of our daughters who lives there with her husband and her kids. And I saw my friend Neil and his wife for dinner. It's important to note here, because I do want to tell this story, that Ashland had been in a drought. They hadn't had any rain in a very long time. Important aspect of this. So I sit down with Neil and his great wife, Em, and I'm facing the windows of the restaurant, and they're sitting across from me. And Neil asked me what I was doing. And I said, strangest thing is, Neil, you know how you wrote Conversations with God? Because I produced and directed the film based on Conversations with God. So I actually knew the answer to the question. You started writing down all these things on yellow pads, and I'm doing the same thing. And I'll tell you, Neil, now that I'm sitting with you, I have a feeling this is supposed to be a book. At that very moment, there was a big lightning flash outside and a lot of thunder. And I thought, the three of us looked at each other, and Neil said, "Yep, supposed to be a book. And I know the title, Another Lightning Strike." And then he said, "Stephen, it needs to be What Dreams Have Come." Because that's what you're living right now. It's no longer may come, it's have come.
Yeah. Coming full circle. Right.
And another lightning strike. And then I said, and I got chills. We both, all three of us, knew we were in a we weren't in Kansas anymore. Something was going on. And I said, you know what? And I have a feeling I'm supposed to write this with Lauren. Another lightning strike. Now we spent the rest of the night talking about all of this. And then I went back, connected with Lauren, and we decided we would write this book together, and that she would write it from her side and I would write it from here. And that's how What Dreams Have Come was born.
That's fantastic.
Beautiful.
It is absolutely fantastic and beautiful. You're right.
There's not many books which are co-written by someone who's on the other side and someone who's here. There's a few.
And we self-published this on Amazon because I had a couple of books published before, but I knew no one was going to publish this book at any kind of reputable publishing house, because of what it was. It was Lauren dictating to me from the other side. And a dear friend had the idea of putting everything that Lauren said into a different font so that it would have a very different personality there, which
brilliant.
was a good idea.
Yeah, it works really well.
Yeah.
So we started having these conversations. And the book took, I don't know, about 2 years, I think. No, it took about 1.5 years. And we published it with Amazon. I, to this day, am not convinced that Amazon, because when you go to the Amazon page, and I just want to say to people, if you're interested, our website is whatdreamshavecome.com. Don't do whatdreamsmaycome.com, or else you go to the movie. Whatdreamshavecome.com.
Yeah, it's in the show notes, by the way, for everyone.
I'm sorry?
The link is in the show description, so people will be able to find it.
Okay, that's great. And so if people are interested, they can go there. I'm not sure that Amazon knows. Matter of fact, I'm pretty sure they don't. That Lauren is on the other side, because it just says written by blah, 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 and I don't think they ever checked into it and stuff. But they never questioned it. Now the book's been out for almost exactly 4 years, and the response has just been wonderful, absolutely wonderful. I have gotten at least 1,000, 1,500 emails from people, and then several emails from those people, because I've created relationships with them. From last time I stopped counting, it was from 30 different countries who are having the same experience.
Yes.
Well, you put a quote in the book, which I thought was really important. Like, I think it's 6 out of 10 people who lose a loved one will have some experience.
Yeah, the University of Milan in Italy did a research project on that. And the University of Milan is kind of like the Stanford University of Italy. It's one of their more prestigious universities. And they did. They found that 6 out of 10 people who had a significant loved one transition reported having some kind of contact, either visual or auditory. But what I'm finding is that people are having the experience that Lauren and I are having. Lauren and I connect really basically every day. And it's been 6.5 years now since she transitioned. And sometimes it's more than once a day. Sometimes I know she lets me know that she's here because she wants to do a check-in on me, but she doesn't want me to know she's here. So she just kind of does a check-in. When she wants me to know she's here, there's a very definite tell that we have together. So I actually know she's here. And it's everyone who's having this experience responds in the same way, which is, that's my wife. That's my husband. That's my child. You know, some of the most moving things have been people who have lost children who then reconnect through that. And everybody tells me they're having the same experience. So I know that this is happening around the world, that the veil is lifting, and that we are having a connection and a communication that I'm not quite sure was available to everyone the way it is now. And I know, Dolly, you've spoken about that everybody has these abilities. Everybody has psychic abilities. Lauren always used to say to me, because people would contact her for readings and things, and she would say, honey, everybody can do this.
Right.
Everybody can do this. This is not something that is special. It's just you become conscious of it. And when you trust it,
That's right.
then it becomes really extraordinary. And that is what has happened with us. And I'm just thrilled that I get to talk about it with you guys and talk about the book.
Yeah, well, that's what I loved about your book, is it's so readable, it's so accessible, it makes it sound so natural, and it is. This is something we should all be doing. And that statistic, 6 out of 10, I think it's probably higher than that. It's just those 4 are not really recognizing what's going on.
Right.
And
It's a normal part of our existence. And we've been, before this time that we're in now, we were shunned away from it because we were held in compartments from it. You know, something where someone always had rule over it. And it's not true. We're autonomous beings and we're part of each other. And there's no way we're divided at all. And people are waking up, as you say. And it is the right time for it to be happening. It's an important time right now. And I'm really glad to see it happen, you know, because now we're having more conversations than we ever did, ever. And it's people are talking about it. They're experiencing it. And that's one of the most important things that I think that all of us can benefit from this is the fact that you now can experience the truth of this. You know,
and I see a question popped up here that I actually think is a great moment for me to answer, which is, do you believe in reincarnation?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yep.
Lauren and I, and this is when Lauren was still physical, we go back millennia. That's how far back we go. We weren't together in every lifetime, but we were together in literally dozens of lifetimes.
Yes.
And Lauren actually took me back with her to a couple of those lifetimes. We were so aware of the fact that we are twin flames,
Yep.
which is 2 halves of one soul.
Right.
And we are that. We've been together for that for a lot. It took a lot of lifetimes to plan this one, so that we would have the experiences that we needed to have, so that I could make these movies, so that we could come together as a combined family. Lauren brought 2 kids into our family. I had 3, all of whom are grown adults. And to have the family and to have those 13, 14 years that we had together since we met that night at the screening. And then for her to be on the other side, I think Lauren knew that. I think she knew it the last year or 2 that she was here physically. I know she didn't tell me because she knew it would terrify me. And she kept it, I believe, to herself, but she knew something was coming, because the last few months, she would curl up in my lap at night and just want to snuggle and rest, and something was happening, and I know she knew something was happening. This couldn't have happened if Lauren hadn't transitioned.
Right.
Right.
We couldn't be doing this unless she was over there and I'm over here. So do I believe in reincarnation? You bet. And it's again something that you either know is true in your heart or you don't.
Right.
And I have never considered myself a metaphysical missionary. I'm not out to change anybody's mind or convince anybody of anything. Okay. To me, this is confirmation for people. And it's like, oh, so many people say, I'm so glad you said this. Because I have been afraid to do this. My friends say I'm crazy and stuff like that. And now more people are starting to write books about this.
Right.
And do other projects about it because they know something is going on in the world. And that is one of the great, great things that we're proud of with the book.
Wow.
You should be.
What has she taught you about the other side? She's been able to give you glimpses into it. I mean, you had a guided journey into the other side with her, which you write about in the book.
I did. And this is one of the things that I think, unfortunately, and I don't want to say this up front, somewhat disappoints people, my answer to this question. And I understand that, but the answer to the question is the answer to the question. It is not one size fits all. This is not a universal experience that the other side is this, the other side is this is what you do, this is what you don't do, this is what it looks like, this is what it feels like. It is very, very different from individual to individual. It depends on your belief system. It depends on how many times you've been here. How much it's so dependent on those things. There was an author, I think his name is Thomas Monroe. I know his last name is Monroe.
Oh, Robert Monroe?
It may have been Robert Monroe. Yes, thank you. Very good, Preston. Thank you. Yes, because that's exactly what it was. Who said that when we transition, we can, not we must, we can live on islands of consensual realities. So it's about choosing this is why Lauren wanted to design our experience. Our experience, how Lauren is living now, where she is living now, is a direct result of all of the things that we planned when she was still here, and our own beliefs. So I can't tell anybody what it'll be like for you, except I can say one thing, which I hope will comfort people. All the pets that you loved can be with you.
Yep. I actually have one with me now. She has not left me, and she will be there when I go through. She's going to walk me through.
Yeah, and we have our dog, our lab Lola, who visits me from time to time still, who was around for a couple of years after Lauren transitioned and then decided that she needed to go back and be with mom. So she's over there with Lauren. And I can tell you that's one of the things that pleases me a lot, because animals were very, very important to us. So that's our story. That is what dreams have come. As I said, there's a lot of stories behind what dreams may come, and a lot of stories behind Somewhere in Time. I don't know if you want me to jump into any of those.
Yeah, sure.
Love it. Yes.
Oh, and Jan, I like reading these comments, if you don't mind. Janice, thank you for that. I appreciate that. A psychic that she knows that has told his followers the best depiction of life after death is what dreams may come. And I believe that is true, because the people who made the film believed it.
Right.
You can't make a film like that. You cannot, unless the key people involved, the writer, in that case, it was Richard Matheson's book, and an incredible writer named Ron Bass, who won the Academy Award for Rain Man years before, wrote the screenplay. Our fantastic director, Vincent Ward, who is from New Zealand, who has the most incredible visual imagination. And as I said, I tried forever to get this movie put together. And I finally found Vincent. I thought Vincent would be great. Vincent read the book, said, Stephen, I'd love to do it. I have no idea how. which a lot of directors had told me over the years. Okay, so I'll keep trying. A few weeks later, he called me. He said, I think I've got it. I think I figured out how to do it. And I said, okay, well, let's get together, you and I and Ron, the writer. So we had either breakfast or lunch one day, I don't remember. And he said, so look, in the book of What Dreams May Come, she is a caterer, I think. And he said, I want to make this all about painting, because Vincent was and is an extraordinary painter, along with being a terrific director. And he's had exhibitions all over the world. And he said, so I want her to be the curator of a museum. And they have paintings all over the house, and she paints as well, because when he transitions, I want him to be in a world of wet paint.
There you go.
Where he is the only human form in a world of wet paint. And it will be something that no one has ever seen on screen before. This is such a typical director producer. So I said to him, that is fantastic. Can we actually do that? This was when we had this conversation, 1996. And I said, can we do that? He said, of course we can do it.
You had CGI by then, right?
Yes, it was just coming in.
Okay.
And I said, great, we can do it. Do you know how to do it? He said, heck no. I have no idea how to do this, but I guarantee you we're going to figure it out. And they did. And that What Dreams May Come wound up winning the Academy Award for visual effects the year that it was released. And that is due to the director's incredible vision. I'm going to tell you, because I know that some people are fans of What Dreams May Come, I'm going to tell you my favorite What Dreams May Come story.
Okay.
If you guys remember the film, there is a moment when Robin is descending into this hellish experience, which we never called hell, right, because we did not want it to be confused with a religious vision of hell. Right. And he gets to a place, and he walks across this plateau, and there are these uplifted faces in the ground looking at him.
I remember that.
And the production designer came into me at one point. He got an Academy Award nomination too, Eugenio. And he said, have you seen the drawings for this scene? And I said, no. And he said, yeah, well, you need to take a look at them. So I looked at them, and I was horrified. And I went to Vincent, and I confronted him, and I said, we can't do this. This is going to be scary. This is a love story. We can't do this. Well, that started an unbelievable argument that got to the point where we found out later that all the production assistants went out in the parking lot because they didn't want to hear the producer and director yelling at each other the way we did. This happens. And as long as it's about the film, it's actually really healthy. And Vincent was, and still is, one of my best friends. So we're having this conversation, this argument back and forth. And finally, Vincent says to me, Stephen, this is a movie about a man who goes through hell to find his wife. He does not go through heck.
Okay. Yeah.
I fell apart. I started to laugh. So within 30 seconds, we're both rolling around on the floor laughing, and he won the argument, and we did the scene. Fade out. We preview the movie several times for several different audiences, and that's a story in and of itself. And when you preview a film for an audience and you want their response, you give them cards that they have to fill in questions and things like that at the end. Every screening we did, there was always the same question. What's your favorite scene? What's your least favorite scene? That scene got the most votes for both. For both. It was favorite scene and least favorite scene. And then we knew we had done our job.
Yeah. When I think of that movie, that's the exact scene that my brain goes straight to every time. That's the first scene in my head before I start total recall of the entire film. It was phantasmagorical to me, you know?
It's a very arresting scene.
Yes.
And for the person who asked the question about reincarnation, you know, that is what the end is all about of that film, because they become reincarnated and we see them as children. Yeah, I'm very proud of Breams.
Yeah, you should be, boy. When that first scene where he goes to the other side and he's flying and there's people, I'm like, yes, this is it. Because I've had out of body experiences. I've been in that realm, so to speak. I'm like, look, someone got it right. This is amazing, and the colors and all of it.
I know it's a beautiful scene. I don't know if you remember that his dog was there to greet him. And the dog, Vincent is a visual person, and he told the animal trainer that we had that he wanted a Dalmatian. And the trainer came to me and said, Stephen, please don't let him do this. Dalmatians are very, very, very hard to train.
Yeah.
They're really hard to train. And I can't guarantee you we're going to get that dog to do the things you need it to do in this scene. And Vincent would have no part of it, which is a director with a vision is going to execute that vision, okay, which I loved and respected about him. So it was our first day of shooting. We shot that scene. And of course, none of the colors and all that stuff was later. It was, shot in a field and stuff. And the dog wouldn't do anything the dog was supposed to do. Okay. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. And finally, Robin said, oh, the heck with it. Let me just run after him. And, we'll run together. And that's when Robin came up, and it was Robin, came up with the great line, I think I screwed up. I'm in dog heaven.
Okay.
Those things I love about Robin. He was improvising.
Listen, when we first offered the movie to Robin, there are a lot of stories behind that. But he called us, and he had Vincent and I fly to San Francisco. And we knew it was going to be a very expensive movie, and it was. And we knew we needed a big star. And he had just been in Good Will Hunting, which got a lot of Academy Award nominations, including for him. And we needed to have Robin. So Robin walked into the room and he said, guys, look, I just want to tell you something up front. Number one, this is going to be my next film. Okay. I'm your guy. And number two, I'm sure you'll both be very happy to hear I'm going to play every single part.
Wow.
And for a second, I thought he was serious. But yeah, it was quite an adventure, Dreams. Really quite an adventure.
That's amazing.
Very cool.
One of the things that happened to me, I had an NDE when I was a very small child. And my memory is very sharp with this one. And when I was there, I was expecting to see things, or I thought to see things, and they actually occurred. I saw I was on a portico. I was overlooking beautiful vista of trees and fields and everything. And I thought, oh, wouldn't it be cool if there were horses? Whoop, there were horses. Wouldn't it be cool if there were giraffes? There were giraffes. Dogs, cats, you name it. I was coming up with stuff and it was showing up. And I was totally enamored of the fact that this was happening right in front of me. And it took somebody to walk up behind me and tap me on the shoulder to take my attention away from it for a minute. And it never left me that for some reason I got what I wanted. I didn't want to leave because of that. I was in heaven in my mind, and years later, I know how to OBE, I know how to astral project, and I can go to the upper realms. And I decided to try it then because I was on a journey of discovery of what's real, what's not, this, that, and the other. And I thought, I'm going to try that again. I'm going to try to say, I want this. And oh my, it does happen. You can put yourself in any scene, anywhere. You can see anyone at any time, do anything you want, have conversations, all of it. And I had to force myself to come back. I got to the point where I'm not going back anymore. And then I realized I got a path I got to follow, reminded of it by others constantly when I was on the other side. And, do what you said you were going to do. Go back and do it. And I do, but I have no problem with anything anymore at any time. I mean, I could leave here in 5 minutes and I would be perfectly satisfied because I know I've done my path. But I can't wait because I told Preston this. There's a crystal sea and I'm going to sit by it with a root beer float and just enjoy myself.
Yeah, that's what I like about what you said. Let's plan this out, or what she said, Lauren. because
Yeah.
the power of intention plays
Exactly.
a huge role when you
Yeah.
are having out of body experiences.
Yep.
So it totally
And,
makes
you know,
sense.
Dolly, your experience is a great illustration of a phrase that Richard Matheson had written in calligraphy in a beautiful thing on in a frame in his house, and I was so admiring of it. He got one for me.
Oh,
It was his overall philosophy, and it was so beautiful. And boy, have I ever found out that it's not only true in life, it's true after life, and it's
Yeah.
this: that which you think becomes your world.
that's right. That's right. Exactly. Point by point. Yep.
That is what it is like on the other side. And we laugh, we have fun.
Yes.
There are moments when Lauren first came through to me. Again, I'm not going to get into it because it's in the book, but it was through a song that we both really loved called Oh Child, Things Are Going to Get Easier, Things Are Going to Get Better. You remember that song? And there's a line in that song that says, when we'll walk in the rays of a beautiful sun when your head is much lighter.
Yeah.
And that let me know that it was her. And through our conversations, there are things that Lauren can tell me, and there are things she can't. And she's explained this to me in, Stephen, when you are here, when you come back and rejoin me here, all of this you're going to remember in an instant.
Right.
But right now, with your humanness and your human brain, there are going to be things that if I tried to explain them to you, I couldn't,
Right.
because your brain couldn't actually grok it. And what I realized is it was very similar to people who say, I'm feeling something, I just can't I can't describe it. There's no word for it. No, because it's a feeling.
Right.
And one of the mantras, it's actually the mantra that we have in the book about how people can trust this happening, which is listen to your heart.
Right.
Trust your heart. Your heart knows. We do movie quotes in at the beginning of every chapter. And one of them is from a movie in which there was a line is the heart is a mysterious organ. It plays by its own rules. And it does. And our souls communicate with us
From the heart. Yeah.
Through feelings, not through thoughts, through feelings. Right. And they don't have words. They don't
trust
have
is a big part of it.
Yeah, I know. I try to tell Preston they don't talk in words. It's all conceptual. They talk in concepts, huge concepts. And some of them are quite immense. And some of them we remember if we're on the other side, and some of them we do not. And you're right about the brain, because your consciousness is not always able to completely communicate with your physical mind. And your physical mind, has to deal with that. And the more you wake up, though, the more the connection strengthens. It sounds to me like you've got one heck of a connection because you are communicating wide open.
That's what I loved about the book. It starts with you a little bit in doubt and leads right through to actual interactive conversations. You mentioned that song, how that came about, where you don't watch the credits, you don't, and then but you felt like you should. I had the same darn experience. I was watching Teresa Caputo, The Medium, on a show, and a message came to me: pay attention to this next reading. There's a message in it for you. And it came right on and said, does the date October 13 mean anything to you? And that's when I started bawling, because that's the day my mother died. And that's what started leading me on the same pathway you write about in this book. And what I love about it is it just grows and grows and grows till you're having these full-on conversations.
Right.
Yeah, it is. Once you get into this, I know for sure that I would not have survived Lauren's transition if
had we not communicated, right?
Yeah, if we weren't communicating, because we were literally together 24/7. We were.
I can't even imagine how that felt for you. I cannot.
That and I those first 6 weeks, I was, everybody takes a certain amount. I mean, some people come through the next day. Some people come through an hour later.
Right.
It all depends on the situation, because I've gotten so many emails from people. And I do want to say to people who are watching this now, that if you go to our website, whatdreamshavecome.com, it'll tell you how to get to the book. It will also give you my email address. And we decided to do that very, very consciously, because I want people to have the ability to express the experience that they've had, that you've had, and to have somebody, in this case, me, and Lauren's always reading over my shoulder. I will not only read your email, I will respond to you. Now, the only thing I want to ask is this. I've had a lot of people ask me, well, I have this movie I'd love to write, and I have this, and I'm out of the film industry. I've retired way a long time ago. I left LA 20 years ago. I don't have any contacts down there anymore. And I'm sorry, but I can't help you with that. This is really for people who are having these experiences of communicating through the veil. And I will read it and I will respond. Depending on how many emails I'm getting, it could take me a day or two. It could take me a week. But I promise I respond to every single email that I've gotten, and I will respond to yours.
Oh, wow.
That's tremendously awesome. That's wow.
So,
Yeah.
So you said at one point your wife, Lauren, led you to some of your past lives. Can you describe that in a little more detail? That one intrigues me.
You know, it was, I will say this, it was a life in Atlantis. And it was pretty brutal.
Oh, wow.
There was a lot of white magic involved, and there was a lot of black magic involved, which is basically what sunk Atlantis, was not being able to deal with the black magic. And it was not something I like to relive, because it was a very painful experience. But she was there with me. That was one of the lives that we were together. It dealt with our son being kidnapped and me being kind of blackmailed into doing certain things that I didn't want to do, and I did, and our son wound up dying anyway.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So it's a much darker experience than I want to share with people. We also went through some fun. If you do read the book, you'll see that Lauren has quite a sense of humor, and laughs at me a lot, which is what we spend most of our time doing, which is laughing at me, which is what we did when she was physical. and it's one of the things that I value the most. And she is living in the environment. I say the word living advisedly. She is living in the environment that we designed. And I know that, you know, when Lauren transitioned, I called 911, and I don't remember the call, but I know I was panicked. And unbeknownst to me, after the 911 operator got the firemen and the paramedics to come up, she also called the police department.
Yeah.
And she said, you guys need to send somebody out there, because I think you need to check in on this guy, or else you might have two people who have passed. He's pretty panicked. So a policeman came in. It was a very, very, very nice guy. I didn't even actually talk to him, but one of our daughters did. And he took our daughter aside and he said, your father sounded really, really desperate when he called. You don't think he would do anything to himself, do you?
Ooh.
My Heather, our daughter said, hey, my father produced a movie called What Dreams May Come.
Yeah.
Okay? Believe me, he's not doing anything to himself. He wants to be with Lauren again. He doesn't want them to be separated. Those are the kind of experiences that we've had. And, you know, to this day, I know that when it's my time, I will be with her. But in the meantime, I'm going to be here every single minute that I need to be here until we're joined together over there.
Exactly.
And we have both agreed that what we did about this lifetime was to assure that we would not have to come back again. And
exactly. Keyword right there.
Dolly talks about that
Same
all the
thing.
time. Let's
We're not
finish
coming
this school
back.
up.
We're done. That's it. I'm done. Done,
Let's
done, done.
graduate.
Yeah.
That's what I said too, but I have a proviso. I have a proviso. Here's
Okay.
that's exactly true, unless Lauren tells me we're doing it again.
Oh, I will never say that. Preston might try to say, but not me. No.
But she won't. She
Okay.
won't. We don't want that to be.
All right, here I'm going to pop up a question because we're not going to have a whole lot of time for questions, but this is interesting. I don't know if you can answer this, Stephen.
Okay, the question for Stephen, given what you said about the other side and that it isn't one size fits all, do you think that's why every near-death experience report is unique yet similar? I absolutely do. That's a very, very wise question, a very perceptive question. I absolutely do. Because, yes, people do report, like if they, I have a dear friend that wrote a book called Angels in the OR, who went through a near-death experience. And she very remembers being lifted out of her body and looking down on the body and seeing what was going on in the room. And she told the surgeon afterwards, she went out in the waiting room, she saw what her father was doing. She told him later that he was trying to get a candy bar out of a machine and he flipped out and, blah, blah, blah. So I do believe that's true. And then she was sent back with a mission. So I think that the tunnel and the loved ones and all of those things are a preface to what happens individually to us. There's a universal experience that tells us it is an NDE and not a DE.
Yeah.
I think, as I said, I think that's a very, very, that's a very wise question. And I know we're at the top of the hour, so I know you guys have to do some business, and I'm going to have to jump off soon. But I wanted to thank you guys for this. It's been really fun, and I hope that people will be in touch and let me know about the experiences you're having. And I wish you guys the best of luck with this going forward, because we need more people like the two of you who are completely into this world and know exactly what it is and are willing to share it with the rest of the world. So I admire you guys both tremendously for doing this, and I thank you for having this forum, and I really have loved being with both of you.
Thank you very much. We were honored that you came. It means a lot to us that you did, and thank you.
You're more than welcome.
Yes, I would have loved to trick you into staying a little bit longer, but do you have any last messages for people before you say?
Sure. I think the one thing I would say is this: there is magic in the world. And when we operated the Spiritual Cinema Circle, which was a business that we had for 16 years, where we sent out uplifting movies to people every month, our core belief was this: we are a very special species, human beings. Yes, we can be ugly, we can be violent, we can be cruel, we can be greedy, we can be all those negative things that basically is the only side of humanity that we hear from most media nowadays, right?
Yeah.
But we are also beings that consciously love.
Yes.
And consciously forgive. We're pretty special. And when we can, as artists, illuminate who we are and can be as human beings when we operate at our very best, then I think we are touching the very face of our spirituality. And hopefully you will experience that with this book if you're interested in it, or the films that I've done. There won't be any more films. As I've said, I've retired. But I look back on my career and I'm really, really, really proud of what we did and the films that we brought out into the world. And again, I thank you guys very much for giving me the opportunity to talk about my favorite subject, which is my wife and our book.
May your journey be full of wonder from here on out, okay?
Thank you. I appreciate that very much.
And it's a huge honor. Thanks so much for joining us. We really, really appreciate it.
You bet. You guys have a terrific evening.
You too. Thank you.
Too.
Bye.
All right. There you guys go. What dreams have come. Taking off where what dreams may come left off. I read the book. You guys should absolutely check it out. What an amazing guy. Now, before we get into a little bit of discussion on that, and you guys, this next hour is Q&A. So get your questions in, whether it's about the subject we've been talking about tonight or not. Any question is fair game. I've already got a few here. Sorry we couldn't get to all the questions with Stephen on, but we did have 1 hour with him, and boy, it was
good.
filled. Yeah,
Absolutely.
So let me just do the quick station ID break because we have to.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
hold on, let me pull off this thing. All right. Thank you guys for joining us for the second hour of The Lightgate. This is episode 72. I'm your host, Preston Dennett. My lovely co-host is Dolly Safran. Our guest tonight has been Stephen Simon, who produced the movie What Dreams May Come with Robin Williams. Also a bunch of other amazing movies, such as Somewhere in Time with, what's his name? Reeves?
Christopher Reeves, yes.
Christopher Reeves and Jane Seymour.
Right.
And a bunch of other stuff. What an amazing guy. What amazing experiences he's had. Here's his book. He has another book, actually, which we didn't get to talk about. But being a movie guy, he's written this book called The Force is With You, Mystical Movie Messages That Inspire Our Lives by Stephen Simon.
I think it's a good read. Yeah, I'll try it out. Yep.
Yeah, and I just want to put the subtitle out here of What Dreams Have Come, Loving Through the Veil, because that's really the theme of this whole book, is how love can transcend both time and space.
Yep.
Right? What a readable, beautiful book. I read it today before the show. It made me cry. It gave me chills, made me laugh. It has the whole thing in it. So definitely check that out. And again, his links are available in the show notes.
Yep.
But now, Dolly, what did you think of the
I love this. Absolutely love it. This is how I live my life. I'm constantly through the veil, back and forth, and I'm with other people. I'm with loved ones. I'm in full communication at most of the time, and it astounded me when I first saw Somewhere in Time, because that was the first foot in the door for this, I think, cinematically, that I can remember in my lifetime. And I bawled my guts out through that movie. I thought it was perfect, fantastic. And then What Dreams May Come, it was like it brought in living color what we have to look forward to and what we should be living now with each other. It's wonderful. You know, we're never separated from one another, not really. And I think this is fantastic.
Yeah, I loved What Dreams May Come because I was having OBEs and it was accurate, especially down to the lower realms, as I call them, because when he's trying to contact his wife and his wife doesn't even see him and won't look at him and is avoiding him because she's trapped in the lower realms. It was very, very well done. And Robin Williams was a good choice. And I forget the lady actress's name, but she was excellent as well. Shout out to her. Sorry.
I think he was born to do many things, and this above all. Yeah, he was made for this. Absolutely.
Yeah, and what also really resonated with me was how this led him to writing this book. Losing his wife was such a tragic experience, but it had this wonderful, beautiful silver lining, which is exactly what happened with me and my mom. If she hadn't passed, I wouldn't be here doing what I'm doing today. Not at all. I wouldn't have had that spiritual, psychic awakening. It was meant to be on a weird, really weird level. And I almost hate to say that because it was so tragic and so sad. I mean, I like him was crying when I woke up, crying when I went to bed. I was not able to function. I would not have survived it if I hadn't been able to have communication with her. Okay, well, now let's get to you guys in chat. And first thing I want to do is say thank you, Heidi. You are amazing. We love you so much. Hope you're doing well. Sending you loving and healing energy all the time. You're one of my favorite people on earth. And thank you so much for your generosity. We're going to get back on the show for sure. And namaste. Truth resonates. Yes, it does. And I think that's what made, Stephen's movie, Somewhere in Time, be what did he call it? Evergreen. I like that one. it's a gem that continues to shine. You can't ever, a gem doesn't get sullied or dirtied. It always
Right.
shines.
It always shines. Yes.
And shout out to Larry Hank. Thank you guys. You guys,
Thank
this
you.
means a lot. It helps us to do this show.
Yes.
We do have to pay to get on some of our platforms here.
Yep.
So it means a lot. Thank you, Gizmo. Truly, truly appreciate it. You guys are awesome. Okay, now let's get some questions in, whether it's about the movie, because we did have a pre-interview with Steven, so we know a few things about him that weren't in the show.
Right.
But feel free to ask us anything about UFOs, life after death, and the whole deal. But Mountain Dan got in early with his question, and this is to you, Dolly. Dolly, do you know the chemistry or type of battery system that the ETs use for their craft? I am an engineer, so let's get sciencey.
Let's get sciencey. I can't give you the chemistry because that would be giving away something that is not reverse engineerable here. They know that they use battery packs. The smaller craft have 3 of them on craft. The bigger crafts have more configurations of them. And the batteries are backup for their main systems of energy while they're in atmosphere, because they can't run wide open their nuclear capabilities because it's so hot it would hurt us in our atmosphere. It's too hot, radioactive. They are in packs. They're cylindrical and they're stacked upon one another. And in between each stack is the craft itself is capable of interfacing with each pack, with each core. In other words, when you're running around and you're calling your bones or your self for energy, you pump up, you make adrenaline start pumping in your body with an emotion or with a thought. And these packs are designed like that so that they give energy on call from the craft itself and the being indwelling it. And so there is a certain amount of psychic actual connection to the batteries. And I will say this to you, that the chemicals that are in these batteries facilitate that. So think about that real hard. That's a hint. They run, batteries can run hot, very, very hot. And you have to understand that on craft, the batteries have to drop down to initialize. They're up in a compartment and then they drop down. You can sometimes see craft that looks like it has a smooth surface on the bottom, and then suddenly this compartment drops down, and you'll see a bit of another level there that's smaller than the craft, but it's hanging down. And that's because it is being put into an environment like space, very cold, so that they can run. Otherwise, that battery would do what our cadmium batteries do and explode or catch fire. It would cause serious, serious problems. So yes, they do get hot. I will tell you that they can, and they have to run them cold. When they're done using them and they go back to their nuclear power, where the graviton emitters are taking a direct energy from the core of their nuclear, the batteries deinitialize and they go back up into the belly of the craft. That's about as much as I can tell you about it without giving away true secrets that you're not considered by absorb or understand. Right. Yeah.
Very cool.
Okay.
All right, guys, thanks for bringing in the questions. There's some really good ones coming up. All right. Here is one from C. Did Steven see any UFOs? We did ask him that, didn't we, in the
Yes, he did. And yes, he did have a couple of instances where he has. He didn't say whether or not he had contact, but yes, that he has seen them. Yes.
Yeah, that's what I remember. You did the pre-interview with him, so.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm just bringing this up. This is the second time today I've heard of a personal story about Richard Matheson. What the heck are the chances? Wow. Synchronicity. Yeah, it's funny. I mentioned that to Steven because I had a tiny little connection with Richard Matheson when I sent out a science fiction story and the editor rejected it, but said, this is actually pretty good. We wanted to keep it, but it reminds me of Richard Matheson. I'm like, who the heck is Richard Matheson? Now, of course, I know he wrote What Dreams May Come, and a big writer for The Twilight Zone, my favorite TV show. So yeah, another little synchronicity there.
Yep.
And gosh, I wish Stephen could have stayed for the second hour. I get it.
Yeah.
But what about Interstellar? I don't know that I've even seen the movie. I know of it.
I saw it, and it speaks to the dangers of being in space. That's what I'll say about it. It does will enlighten people as to what it means to have an object coming at you at 27,000 miles an hour, or massive amounts of objects, and tear through you, that NASA or whoever's guiding these craft in space could not avoid. Things happen. So, okay.
Yeah. And Warrior Soul says, the book sounds great. Yeah, it is. It's actually a pretty short book. It's super easy to read. And what I like about it is what I said already, is he starts doubting some of these communications he's getting from Lauren. But really, it builds up pretty quickly to, there's no way this can't be true. And the synchronicities throughout the book are really touching. He describes his own near-death experience at one point.
Right.
And there's some really interesting aspects to that. How they met. I mean, the whole book is really very readable. A fun, easy, quick read. And
I want to give a corollary to something. And this will help you understand what they mean by signs and understanding that a message is coming through and it's valid. I have a cousin who passed away very young, a second cousin. And at his funeral, a bee started flying around everybody and going on everybody. I was not at this funeral, okay? And it was a big thing to them. And they all said that it had to have been him buzzing them for reasons of his personality and what he was like. Well, fast forward a year, and I have an aunt on the other side of my family who was passing away. And she was talking, and she saw my mother come through, who had already passed away. And then she said his name, and everybody's asking me, who is this person? And I knew instantly who it was. But what I didn't tell them, and I did tell my family, the side that he was on, is 2 days before her funeral, her passing, actually, sorry. I saw him come to me, and he had his hands like this, and he opened them, and there was a bumblebee in his hands. And he showed it to me. He kept showing me the bee. And I had no clue about what was going on. And I called my daughter a month later, and I said, I want to tell you something that happened. Maybe this will make sense to you. When I told her, she fell apart on the phone. She said, oh my God, that had to be him. That's the only way that could have been him. He did tell you, and I had a message from him to them, was to let them know that he was completely fine. He was happy, and that he was with them, and he will never, ever leave them. And that's how you know. When synchronicities like that, things happen in sequences, and only other people would know what this means, or they have information that feeds into the conversation between the other person on the other side and the one you're having is important. Even when you have a conversation with somebody on the other side, they will give you things that you would know, but they would know. That's how you make those synchronicities line up, and you know that you're having a valid conversation. That's how.
Yeah, it's funny you say that, because I don't consider myself a medium, really, or a psychic reader, though I've had quite a few experiences with this. And one day I was talking with a lady who had an out-of-body experience and really wanted to talk to me about it, because she lost her son. And there's no more difficult thing than when a parent loses a child. I think it's difficult for all of us when we lose a loved one, but there's something really profound about that, the relationship. And when you lose a child, it's so sad. So she had an absolute valid experience with him, and I was just I'm like, yes, this sounds like an OBE to me. And we were just talking, and she's like, do you see him? Can you communicate with him? And I'm like, I don't really do that. But that's when I got this vision in my head that was very clear, and I'm like, oh God, okay, I'll say this. And I said, I see you walking down the street. And it's weird because he's very close to you, and he's got his arm over your shoulder, and you're walking together like, Siamese twins down the street. She started bawling. She's like, that's what we do. That's the way he was. We would walk down the street pressed up against each other. I'm like, oh my gosh. And I'm just bringing this up because this points towards how important it is to trust what you see. Because I wasn't going to say anything. But she kept urging me. I'm like, okay, I'll just say this. I think I'm wrong. Nope, I was right. So trust your intuition. And that's how you really get started with loving through the veil. I love that subtitle.
I do too. Yep.
Okay, here's a great question from Linda Catlett for you, Dolly, and I actually want to hear this one too. Please describe the crystal sea.
Ooh. Okay. It is, when I saw it the first time, there are biblical references to this, okay? And I wasn't sure that it existed. I just know that I suddenly saw it. I was walking across a plain, a meadow, and I went up a hill, and I went down the hill, and as I was going down the hill, I saw this long, looked like a river at first, and then I realized that it was a sea. It had two sides. I could see all the way to the other side, which you can perceive on the other side. You have longer vision than we do here. And it was crystal. I mean, pure white crystal. It looked like crystal. And I was shocked, and I ran down to it. And I thought, oh, put your foot in, because it undulated and moved like real water, but it looked crystal. And when I did, my foot went right in. And I felt it on my skin. It was cool. And it smelled like salt water to me. Perfect, pure, crystalline salt water. And I thought, wow. And then I thought, you know what? Walk in. And I walked in, and it only came up to about my shoulder blades. And I'm a pretty tall girl, so I'm saying it was a little over 5 feet tall, 5 feet. And or I'm just under 5, right at 5 feet, because I'm 5'8". And I was walking in it and feeling it. I could feel the waves, and I could feel the current. And I splashed around, but I didn't try to float. I don't know what made me not do that, but I didn't float. And then when I walked out, I was 100% completely dry. And yet I had been in this liquid that's crystalline. And I sat down dumbfounded, and I'm looking for people. I'm like, is anybody else out here seeing this? Am I the only one dreaming this up? What is this? And sure enough, I looked down to my right, and there's somebody way down the line, and they stood up and they walked to me, and they said, "Isn't it beautiful?" And I said, "Yes." And I said, "What is this?" And they said the name to me, Crystal Sea. It is the Crystal Sea. And it is a fixture here. It is always here. And I said, "Why is it this way?" And they gave me a vague answer, but later in my life, I finally figured it out. It is the energy of life itself. And it runs all the way through everything. And to see it is a real treat. And y'all can see it at any time. I mean, if you're OB, tell yourself, I want to go to the Crystal Sea, and you'll show up. But like we feel the ions from the sea ourselves because of the salt water, you really feel it there. It's powerful.
Was it making any noise? Were there
waves?
waves?
Ocean, I could hear it. Yes. And you could smell it, and there was wind blowing. And
was the beach sandy, or was it crystal?
Pure glass sand. In other words, you could almost see through it, but it was perfect. It was absolutely perfect. And it absorbed the light. We live with a blue sky here because of oxygen and everything, but there the sky is perfectly white. It is pure energy, and it reflected it, Was the Crystal Sea white as well? Yes. Well, every now and then it would, when you see crystals, you could see refracted light in them, and you could that too as well. I mean, all the colors of the rainbow are in it, and they glint like a diamond. I mean, oh wow. And it was unbelievable. And when I leave here, that's where I'm going. I'm going to go straight there and just sit down and enjoy it. I'm not kidding you. It's the most fantastic thing I've ever seen over there. And I just want to be there again, So you said something really interesting about the other side to me the other day. We're doing the interviews for Symmetry. This wouldn't be described necessarily as the fourth or fifth or dimension. This is more source, outside of dimensional space. Right. As we would think of it. Right. We are all in source. We all come from source. And source is not in dimensional space. Source is at the center of everything. People say they look up and they want to look up to heaven. Those are dimensions you're trying to look up through. Source, a yogi will tell you have to go within to go without. Well, within is where source is. We have a source in our chest. It's our heart. It's the electrical conduit for our existence on this planet. And your consciousness is tethered to it. That's where your cord comes from. That's where your consciousness speaks to you through your heart. It's really and truly a very mystical, beautiful organ in your body. And it communicates with you from your consciousness. Your pineal gland in your mind feeds to your physical mind. It's the connection between the two, or without. And you really must go within, and source is within. We're all there together. We all coexist. Everything in our universe is all in source together.
It sounds very much like the experience I had, which I called the crystal realm, which is where my mom took me. And it was just crystals everywhere. And you said something, your vision is different. I could see 360 degrees around me. I could zoom and focus in on a mile away in great detail. Everything was crystal. It was all crystal. Crystal boulders, crystal sand, crystal rocks, crystal mountains. Marilyn Hughes, a former guest on our show, The Lightgate, wrote a book called Crystal River Flowing.
That's it.
It's the same thing. She said there's four, it's a crystal forest, it's all crystal.
Right.
It's so cool. And what you said about, coming out of the water and not being wet, I know that feeling because I did that too on the other side. In fact, you can I've gone swimming in this, it wasn't the crystal sea, but it was a sea. And also I took a bath once on the other side, and that was different. That was so much fun. It's just, I don't even know how to describe it. It's different.
Yep. I 100% agree. Okay.
All right, guys, keep those questions coming. Let's see. Let's keep on going down here. What do we have next? This is not so much a question, but a statement from Invisible Acropolis. This is an interesting topic because I personally did not experience these kinds of communications from specific people who have passed until about 10 years ago. So I think you wake up to it at some point.
Yeah.
The trick is being ready, I guess, or listening.
Accepting. It's amazing. I mean, I grew up in a psychic family, so we never looked at passing away from here as death. It's just the transition. That's all it is. And we've talked about it openly, and we've all expressed messages that we will leave for one another or try to help one another with. My mother had a hard time with it at first for a long time, and toward the end before she transitioned, she had cancer so bad and she was hypoxic, so she was a little bit wary of everything. And my father promised her, and I reminded her constantly, that he was going to show her when he passed away. Before she did, he would give her a message. So backtrack 4 years. He died. He passed in 2014 and her in 2018. Well, not even 24 hours after he transitioned, we were standing at the back door of our house, my house. And I had a light back there that never worked. Tried everything, never could get it to work, but it was still there. Had a light bulb in it. And it's 20 degrees below zero. And we were wrapped up in, coats, blankets, whatever it took to stand it to let all the animals out, who ran out like maniacs just to go to the bathroom and come back in. And while we were standing there, that light turned on and off and on and off and on and off 3. And she started crying, and she said, "That's it. That's the sign. I know it." And I said, "See?"
Sometimes it's absolutely indisputable.
Right. You can't mess with it, And of course, I saw him that night. He came to me and talked to me and told me what he was going to be doing. And he made me promise to take care of her. And I did. I just, we can have personal conversations with loved ones. Your connection is so strong. I'll give you a physical reason why it happens too. Mothers and children, while you're pregnant with your child, their cells enter your body, and they congregate in your actual heart, mystical pump you got going on there. And there's a connection between the two of you in your lifetime. All mothers can tell you that they just know when something's happening to their kid, or they know when they need help, or they know when they're happy or unhappy. That connection is strong. And if your mother passes away, you're still got that in your heart too, because it's a two-way street. Mothers have it, and the children have their mother in their heart. And that connection is so strong still in you that you can communicate through the veil with them, because that's your line to them. It happens. It's real. Explore that. Think about it.
There's a book called Stephen Lives, which I have somewhere back there, written by a mother who lost her child to suicide. And she connected to him and had a whole conversation with him. There's another series of books called, I think they're called the Michael books. Same thing. And the mother asked, like, how are we doing this? He's like, Mom, we know each other so well that we're now able to talk this way. And you did the work. So this is how we're able to do this. Those are really good books too. Stephen Lives and I think they're called the Michael books.
Yeah.
But yeah, my mom reached, I was playing guitar once in my easy chair, sitting in my condo. This was, six or so years after she had died. At least 7, now that I'm thinking of it. But I was still going through it, still having a hard time. And suddenly the light went off, and then it went on. Now lights flicker sometimes, right? But this went off and then on in that space of time. And that was weird. So I set the guitar down and I stood up and I said, is there anybody here? And that's when my answering machine went beep and stopped. It can't do that. Of course, I ran over there and tried to make it do that. And that's when I said, okay, Mom, if that's really you, here's what I want you to do. And this is so unreasonable because I was still doubting. I said, I have these statues on my toilet, little brass statues. I still got them. I said, if you could move those, I'll know for sure. I think I've told this story before, so I'll be brief. At any rate, it was the next day, I think, when I heard a crashing sound, ran through the house, couldn't find anything, finally walked into the bathroom, and they were all on the floor. So That's when I knew for sure it was her.
Yep.
We absolutely can communicate with our loved ones.
Yes.
Okay. CT Guitar Guy says, I'm glad Stephen liked my other question. It was a good question. So thanks for
asking. Actually, very well. Well written.
Yeah, I think it's absolutely true. Because people have studied near-death experiences up, down, and sideways, and some people in different countries see Buddha or Muhammad, or some people see their deceased loved ones. A lot of it depends on your own beliefs or your spiritual level of evolution, because there are people who've had what we would term hellish near-death experiences.
Right. Exactly.
All right. Here is a question from Sherry Marsh. Preston, have you ever had an abduction report from an Amish community? Just curious. Not specifically, but now that you asked, I have a mission. I'm sure I could find one. I'm doing, of course, the series of YouTube episodes called UFOs in Your Hometown. I'm putting out a new episode this Friday. And what I found is UFOs are, of course, seen everywhere, landing, onboard experiences, humanoids, the whole deal. So I say dollars to donuts. Yes, I could find one, but I can't say specifically. But now I'm on a mission. And Sherry, and okay, moving along. And this is an interesting question from CT Guitar Guy. And it's a good one. Question is, my understanding is that Atlantis is fictional according to all the historians and archaeologists, including Plato, describes it being. Any proof you're aware of? You want to start or shall I?
There is no proof. They only have descriptions of it and a possible deciding where it could have been and when it could have been. And everybody's starting to realize that it is in the eye of the Sahara. That's where it was. Because before, the last 6,000 years, there was a flood incident then. Okay, over 6,000 years ago. And that's when it would have happened. And that's how Plato could have had, information about it coming down through the ages and people. And they know that it's near a landmass. Why don't y'all Google the Eye of the Sahara being Atlantis and see what you pull up? There'll be a whole bunch of stuff about it, studies. And there are archaeologists who are digging at it now, but it's really hard because it's in the Sahara Desert. But they're thinking that it fits all the categories of what Plato said. You also have to remember that Plato didn't have that much information about it. There's a lot of misinformation about things that Plato said. It was very short and sweet, and he didn't go on about it a lot. He just gave that one bit of information about it, and everybody took it and ran. So that's what it is.
Yeah, I know that the famous psychic from Virginia, what's his name? He did all his past life readings.
Yeah.
Said that there was an Atlantis, and there are people who do believe they have past lives with Atlantis. And to hear Stephen talking about it is certainly a level of confirmation, and for him, it was a real experience.
Right.
And I think we know for sure that there were previous iterations of advanced societies.
Right.
And Stephen's description is in such detail.
Right.
That
Exactly.
it's like,
Hard
wow.
to deny. Yeah.
So it sounds like it's a real honest to God experience, but whether you call it Atlantis or not, I think is a matter of semantics. But I'm going to say for sure that there were civilizations like it, because we know this from archaeological records. Gosh, why can't I think of that psychic guy's name? Remember he?
Yeah, it is the sleeping
prophet. Yeah. Well, maybe one of you guys in chat can.
Yeah.
Let me know who that. Edgar Casey. Thank you.
Edgar Casey, thank you.
Yes. Yeah, he said that a lot of people in the United States are actually reincarnated from Atlantis, and he's a legit psychic. He absolutely proved his abilities to people and actually cured them. So I'm going to say no, not proof perhaps, but definitely some really good indications.
To it, yeah.
All right. Next question comes from Amanita Mascaria, staying up late. Amanita, awesome. Question: why do I see some deceased loved ones in dreams and not others?
Because they definitely had something to say to you. That's why they were looking for you. That happens. Not everybody will talk after they transition. They're off doing things or learning things still, going back over their own life, and you also have to be on the able to hear it. In other words, your OBE when this happens, just so you know, it's not a real dream, and it's an actual OBE, and they've contacted you and run into you and left you a message of some sort, or just want to imply something to you, or you may have a need to see them and you've called them into you. That can happen.
All right. I just realized I didn't actually give out the call signs during the break time. So let me do that real quick. The United Public Radio Network, we're streaming on it. UFO Paranormal Radio Network, 105.3 FM and 107.7 FM from the beautiful city of New Orleans. Please forgive me, guys. Don't take us off the air. I got it out. It's a little late. But yeah, we're also on Roku and YouTube and Facebook and perhaps soon other platforms. So just want to give a quick shout out to that. 105.3 and 107.7. Thanks for listening, guys. And let's get on with the questions, because you guys are delivering. I totally appreciate it. I wish we could have had them for the whole hour. Yeah. But we will make do. Okay. And I just wanted to go touch back on Amanita. Your question is, I'm going to reiterate what Dolly says. When people pass on, we're at different levels. Or my father, for example, I didn't have any dreams about him, and I never had any OBs about him for years. And it's still a little bit up and down because I think he had some issues to work on. So sometimes we go to the other side and we're a little bit busy. And other times you'll see them right away if they're at that level and they're already very spiritual. And I think that's what really helped with Simon, because his wife was clearly spiritually advanced and very spiritually and psychically aware, and was able to instantly connect with him, or not instantly, but certainly
they landed together. I know, twin flames, they can do that.
It worked well. So I think it's a two-way street for sure. So don't be disappointed if someone's not showing up. They might be busy. All right, this was funny. I'm just bringing this up. Peak says, I loved seeing Dolly fangirl. Dolly is so adorable, and it was so endearing. Yeah. Oh, wow. That was cute.
I know. I gush every now and then. Thank you. Oh, my
God. All right, Linda Catlett. My dad passed away a few months ago. Oh, my condolences. The first 2 weeks after his passing, I felt him in my presence, but I no longer feel him. Yeah, well, that speaks to what we were just saying. He's probably might be off on his wild journey. I don't think, I'm just bringing this up because someone asked me, that he's reincarnated yet, unless it's directly into your family where he can re-experience you. And what I've found in my own research is that people generally will wait until all their loved ones and people they're directly connected with pass on, so you can all, reunite. And then, because time is different on the other side, and you can come back into any era. So I think there's probably reasons why sometimes people don't show up. For example, I had very close connection with my mom for years and years. Now it's very sporadic. I had one OBE just recently where I popped out and I went looking for her, and I found my brother Steven, and he wasn't quite fully clicking to it. He looked young, he looked great. And I knew my mom was there, and I turned around and I found her, and I'm like, Mom, can we talk? And she said, no. And off she went. I was so mad. I was really mad and kind of hurt a little bit, but yeah, she apparently was busy. So I'll try again. Okay, now here is a question I've been thinking of, and I'm just racking my brain, and I finally thought of one. This is from Fun Talks TV. Question for you two. Do you have any other uplifting movie titles that represent the afterlife? That one with Albert Brooks and Meryl Streep. What's it called? Can't hear you. Nope, your microphone. Are you on mute, Dolly? You are. You're on mute. Here, I'll unmute you.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay. It's called Defending Your Life.
Yeah, I loved that one. That was funny and uplifting. I'm trying to think of others. Definitely not Flatliners.
No.
That turned into a horror movie.
No.
There's got to be some good ones out there, but I'm still.
I was thinking of one while we were talking with Stephen, and then poof, it went right out of my head. It'll come back to me in a minute. But yeah, there are a few out there. Definitely.
Ghost.
Oh yeah, that's a good one.
It's not really so much about the afterlife.
The other day. Yep.
But yeah, that's a really good movie. And actually really accurate in a lot of ways too.
Yes.
Okay, we'll try to think of some others, but definitely Defending Your Life is a good one. Meryl Streep is really good in that one. Albert Brooks too.
Yep. Shirley MacLaine's in it too.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. This is more of a comment. Arose Julien Cano. Good research. More and more is being made about the afterlife and its effects on people. Yes, Jeffrey Mishlove. Well, I'd love to get him on the show. He just won a major award for his research into near-death experiences and afterlife. There's absolute evidence of the afterlife coming from mediums, from channelers, from out-of-body explorers, and from ghosts.
Mm-hmm.
Frankly, there's technology that is really making great strides where you can absolutely electromagnetically communicate. There's a whole series of cases of people who've connected the afterlife with phone calls. I did a whole episode on Phone Call from an ET. There's a book by Daniel Cohen called Phone Call from a Ghost, which outlines several cases. And my dad, when he passed on years later, his girlfriend came up to me and she says, you know what? I got a call from him the day after he died. I'm like, what do you mean? She says, it came on my call waiting. I've got it. It's, and I'm not ever going to erase this. He didn't leave a message, but he called. Somebody called from his number.
Wow.
So
amazing.
Yeah. The research into the afterlife is just growing and growing. It's very cool. Thank you, Linda. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Very, very nice of you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Okay. Janice Connett says, the music in these films, Somewhere in Time, are so moving. I would meditate to the music in Somewhere in Time.
Yep.
I don't remember it. We have to watch that movie again.
Okay. I can hear it in my head right now. Seriously. It's beautiful. Yep.
I've talked to people who had near-death experiences. One was a family friend, and often it's chimes or bells or classical music. Mm-hmm. And she's describing, she had an out-of-body experience, actually. I'm like, did you hear any music? And she said, yes, I did, actually. And I said, what kind was it? She says, it was classical. I'm like, there you go. So yeah, music is really important and comes from the other side, I think. I don't know. Okay. This is from CT Guitar Guy to you, Dolly. How does Dolly know she didn't manifest it because she wanted to be there? Visit being a fixture, given the idea that we make our reality on the other side. So I guess the question is this Crystal C objective realm?
I have a habit. Preston puts it better than I do, but when I see something that I'm not sure of, I make sure that I impress the fact that I don't want to see illusion. I don't want to be delusional either, and I want only reality in front of me. And I'm very stoic about it. I say, let this only be reality for me. Let me only see that which is real. Preston says, let all illusion disappear. And that's how you can, do it for yourself. And you sit there and you patiently wait for that to happen. And you look for clues, and then you look for other people's verification of it as well. And I've not only heard it from Preston, but I've heard it from other people as well who describe the same thing I do. They've seen it as well. We all can't be making it up. So that's how I know. I also remember the experience of going into it. It was physical for me. And I'm conscious when I'm doing these things. I'm fully aware, 100% aware. It's not a dream for me. It's perfect lucidity. I am aware. I know I'm awake. And so that's another reason that I know. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I was having an out-of-body experience when I started to wonder if it was a lucid dream, because you can project a reality which is in essence your own thoughts becoming manifest. And you can go on the other side and actually manifest anything you want. Food, build houses, trees, you name it. You can build it with your mind. It's the coolest thing. But there is an objective reality on the other side. What Stephen was talking about, how Robert Monroe called it a consensus reality. Right. Yes, this crystal realm does exist independent of you. It's not dependent on your own thoughts. You're not making it up. It's there. However, when you're out of body, this sort of issue crops up. And I was in this place once, and I'm like, gosh, I just don't know what's going on here. And I'm like, all illusion, go away. All illusion, go away. And this guy comes up to me, pops in front of me and says, no. Here's what you want to say. Make it simple. All illusion end.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, because this is a big part of being on the other side. You don't say, oh, I want to go here. You say, I go there. You really intend, you focus, you put your willpower, your emotion, your intention, your attention, all of it. And that's how you do it. And so, yeah, it's a two-way street. I've used that term before, but absolutely you can create reality on the other side, but it is independent of us, as is this world. It is independent of us. It's not a matrix. It's not a simulation. This is my assessment based on my research, but I'm not a fan of the matrix theory. Just going to say it. Okay. Some great questions coming out here, so let's get to them. Let's see. Hold on one second.
Okay.
This is more comment. I'm very fortunate from Scott. I'm very fortunate that I have dreams that things were told to me that I could not have ever known. I have great gratitude. Yes, dreams are often, for a lot of people, just a replay of your daily life or a reflection of your psychological state, your fears, your desires mostly. But then you move up a level to lucid dreaming, where you're aware in the dream and you can control it and you can manipulate it. And from there, you go up another level where these dreams have verifiable information, precognitive dreams. And that's when you know you're at a point where you can leave the dream state behind and become aware the entire night. And that's when you've reached a psychological level where you're already processing through your issues of fear and desire and lust and greed and hate and all the things that steal your attention. dreaming is absolutely a pathway towards spiritual enlightenment. The Tibetan Buddhists know about this and talk about it.
Yeah.
So very cool. Okay, CT Guitar Guy. I find it very difficult to discern between synchronicity and simply reading into things, honestly. You want to comment on that, Dolly?
Synchronicity. Synchronicities are things that speak directly to an issue or a moment in your life that leads you to a point of understanding. That's what a synchronicity is. You don't have to think about it. It's right there in front of you and you absolutely see it. And it's absolutely mirroring something else at the same time or separately. You know, it's really weird how that happens. It's almost you're showing yourself to pay attention to an issue. That's what synchronicities are. They're to help lead you down the path that you're supposed to be going on. And you're actually seeing things that show you you're going the right way. That's how they work. So.
Yeah, I mean, I sympathize with you. I've had that feeling, but when I get the chills, that's when I know this is meaningful.
Right.
And, you know, I have the same problem with remote viewing. I'm getting these images. I'm like, well, gosh, how do I know I'm not making this up? And this leads back to what Stephen was saying. Trust in your intuition, practice. The more you trust and you explore with it, the more you'll understand that what this is actually happening.
And verification will come. I mean, you can draw what you're looking at, you can write it down, you can keep a journal, and then it'll verify itself within a certain amount of time, you know, short amount of time actually. So do that.
All right, here's from Damon. I had several dreams recently. My deceased grandpa visited me. Very cool. I know that was him, caps. Yes, when you know there's a quality to their presence. He had a loving yet stern conversation with me, and all I remember, sorry to laugh because I know this feeling, is the number 118. What's 118? I've had this kind of weird thing where you have a long conversation, you remember like the last few words or something. It's so frustrating. And I don't know what 118 is, but
that's a synchronicity waiting to happen. Somehow 118 is going to come to you, and you better pay attention when it does. There you go.
That's how long you'll live. That would be awesome.
I don't know.
Yeah, just watch for it.
Right, you're traveling and you get a hotel room and it's 118. Woo! That, you know? Or you're getting on a flight that's flight 118. I mean, pay attention. These are things that are telling you to pay attention to whatever's going on at that moment with that number.
Could be that at 1:18 in the afternoon, something amazing happened.
Yeah.
All right. Moving to the next question, and I like this one. Kason Lee says, hello, Preston. Hello, Kason. Do you believe in astrology? Hello from Sri Lanka, by the way.
Ooh,
Sri Lanka,
cool.
very cool. My friend Larry, I call him Talking Larry because he talks all a minute. He lives in Sri Lanka. Well, it goes back and forth. Do I believe in astrology? A little bit. Yeah, I think there's something to it. I was always kind of a disbeliever because it's so abused, I guess would be the way to put it, or just thrown around with these little horoscopes. And I know a lot of people actually place quite a bit of value on it. And I think done correctly, if you can absolutely pinpoint your date of birth and time of birth and location and all of that, and have a real honest to God astrologer do your chart, I think it's a tool that will allow them to access verifiable information. But I was always a skeptic until one day I'm watching TV and they hired all these astrologers to do these charts and didn't tell them who they were doing charts for, which turned out to be people like Jeffrey Dahmer and all these serial killers, honestly. And one by one, the people who were doing the charts said, well, you know, I don't really like this person. You know, if I didn't know better, I'd say that this person was a serial killer. One person said that exactly. And I'm like, unless this is completely bogus television, which it could be, didn't look like it. That made me second guess myself. So I think there is something to it because I've had a few astrological readings and they were pretty good. So yeah, I think there is something to it, but done correctly.
Right. Some astrologers also are drawn to that art and type of science by the fact that they're already psychic, and it's a tool for them to help you with giving you heads up about things in your life to look for, and things about you that you need to explore, working on your karma and stuff like that. They're really good at it. A really good astrologer can do that for you.
Okay. Oh, goodness. We're actually getting towards the end of the hour here, but we still have some good questions here. Kason Lee, another question. Preston, can you heal people when you go astral traveling? Like Casey? Yes. And in fact, I was called to heal a couple of times. Once it was my sister, and I don't know if anything was wrong with her, but they had me put hands on her so that she needed a healing. Another time, someone I don't know, they said, put your hands inside this person. I was out of body. And like, you're kidding me. They're like, no, this is what you need to do. And another time, and I won't say who this was with, but I met somebody and they had some sucker leech attached to them. And I was feeling their body. I'm like, this is not supposed to be on this person. And I pulled it off and I threw it away. It was a parasite, an astral parasite of some kind.
Yeah.
And it grossed me out. I mean, I don't have any fear, but I'm like, ugh. That was a little bit. Now, when I'm astral traveling, let me underline that. When I'm astral traveling, I'm pretty good. But so, yeah, I've done healing, and I've been to a healing temple, which was really cool. Healing is a big part of the astral travel experience. And I wrote an article with 20 different cases of people who had healing as a direct result of astral projection. So, yeah, it's a big part of it. You want to comment anything on that, Dolly?
Just that healing has different levels. And I want y'all to realize that any trauma that you've lived in your lifetime and it's still affecting how you react to things and people and places and whatever, those are things that you can heal yourself by seeking to meditate and, go to the other side, find healing for yourself that way. But it doesn't mean it's just like magic. It's just going to heal you. You have to do the work that's related to it. And whereas you'll be spiritually shown a way to accommodate how you can alter or change how that's affected you. And it heals your DNA when you do that. Trauma affects our DNA. And when you heal that trauma yourself, you're healing your DNA as well. So think about that. Look it up. It's a pretty cool concept to learn about and help yourself with. Okay.
All right. Fung Pei says, what if they do show up but refuse to say anything with an angry scowl on their face? So I'm assuming this is OBEing or dreaming of someone who's deceased. I've had this. My brother showed up in nothing but an angry scowl. He had some psychological work to do. People aren't always ready to meet. That's what it comes down to. They've got some issues that they're working through. And if you had a relative or a loved one, I'll put it that way. Let me put it a different way. Someone who was close to you in your life who was perhaps abusive, you're not necessarily going to meet them on the other side. And if you go to them and try to meet someone out who, is not quite ready, it'll be very much like it would be in normal life.
Yeah,
it might be a little bit awkward.
If they show up and get right in your face, in your vision, love bomb them, smile, say, I love you. Why are you upset? And I love you anyway. No holds barred. I love you, and see what happens. It'll help.
Yeah, for the most part, on the other side, people really go through a whole wake-up call about how they affected people. Because there's, in the near-death experience, you would go through a life review and you feel how you helped anyone or hurt anyone and all the successes and failures in your life and all the things you learned. So people grow real quick on the other side. All right, Kason Lee, getting in the questions. Don't apologize. It's awesome. We've just got 4 more questions left, which is perfect because that's all that we have time for. Kason Lee says, do you guys believe in distant Reiki? I do. I think people can heal from a distance. There's no such thing as space on the other side.
There's no distance between us at all. Nope. That's
Okay.
why remote viewing is so cool, because you're going someplace without leaving, your consciousness is going forward into another place, but you're in both places at the same time. It's very, very, very cool. Okay.
All right. One more question for you after this. Amanita, if you're still up, I keep dreaming of my mom and deceased sister. Does it mean that someone is about to die? I don't think so necessarily, unless you're
No.
getting that impression. It could be that they're coming because you might be going through a hard time, or they're just dropping in to check in on you and say hi.
Unless they directly show you that somebody's going to go. Like my dad, since he transitioned, comes and tells me when the next one's coming, sometimes a month in advance. It's very disconcerting sometimes for me because of who the person is, but he always tells me who it is. And the last one time it happened to me was my own brother. He showed me a month before he passed away that he was imminently on his way, and it shocked me. And I asked him again after my brother transitioned over, "Are you going to keep doing that to me?" And the answer was a verbal yes. You hear it, it's coming. Maybe you can help that person. And once I knew it was my brother, I did try to do the best I could with that situation. It prepared me for that situation. So yeah, you can be told somebody's going to be next, and don't ignore it. Use it as an opportunity to make contact, to show them you love them, and maybe be there for them while this is happening. That's why you get the messages. And if your mom and your sister are showing up, maybe it's just because they just want to be with you because you're going through something and they're trying to give you comfort. Think about that.
Okay. Here is a question for you, Dolly. What's the most effective kind of music? Oh, no, wait. Dolly, how do you explain NDE experiences? I think that's what he means, because I don't know what SDE.
You are completely aware of what's happening to you. It's not a shock. When you're sick or you're injured or whatever, everything happens that you're completely aware of what's happening to your body and you, and the separation from it. Most people do experience that as seeing yourself rising above yourself, or seeing the light in the tunnel. Those are the two most common. And then you go somewhere where there are people waiting for you, or even just solitude, and maybe a guide is waiting for you. But there's always that's happening. And when it's happening to you, that sums up with this, because you're not really, it's not like a boom, I'm there and everybody, yay, you're here we go. It's no, you need to stop and think about this real quick. We're going to be sending you back. You get that feeling right away. I mean, you just know in your heart of hearts, you're about to turn around and go the other way. And there are messages, though, and things that you see. And if you have an ND, you pay attention to every single detail about it. Don't forget any of it, because it's for a reason, actually. So.
Okay, we're going to have to wrap it up here. I'm just going to go through these last three questions, super rapid fire.
Okay.
5 seconds each, literally, because we have to go. What's the most effective kind of music when it comes to health? Classical. Enya. Yep. I love Enya. Harps. They actually played harps in people's hotel rooms, and it helped them to heal. Any music that you really resonate with, but probably not, death metal or something really.
No, Celtic music is really good for when you're ill. Listen to Celtic music, or music, and the music of nature itself, nature sounds, things like that. They're good for you, and make sure that you can ground somehow while you're ill. Take your shoes off, put your foot on the ground, feel it. Go sit on the porch and put your feet in the dirt. Wrap up if you have to. Have a couple of
chanting. All kinds of music work.
Yeah.
Okay, we really have to close this up.
Okay.
Question: can you give recommendations on how to astral project? Yes, email me. The email is right there below. I'll say it to you guys. The email, I'll give you a guide. It's 3 pages, and I swear if you follow the steps, I guarantee it just about, it will work. Email me at prestonufo@gmail.com. It's my first name, the word UFO. Easy to remember, prestonufo@gmail.com. One other question. What is there to do on the other side? Whatever you want.
Yeah, anything. All of it.
Music,
learn what you want to learn. It's all do anything. Yep.
It's all there. Everything you do here and so much more.
Yep.
All right. You guys, we're going to have to wrap it up. Huge shout out to you guys with the super chats. Heidi Hansen, thank you so much. Namaste. You guys are unbelievably generous. Larry, Hank, thank you. Gizmo.
Thank you.
You guys, I love you so much.
Thank you.
Janice and Linda, you guys are amazing. Thank you guys so much for joining us today on the Light Gate. Sorry we couldn't have our guest for the whole 2 hours, but it worked out anyway. And love you guys. And can't wait to see you next week.
Right.
All right. Bring us out, Dolly.
Thank you, everyone, for coming this Monday night. It meant a lot to us to have you all here. We are all spiritual beings, and any talking about it, especially ET. Also, this is one way that we learn and we thrive, being who we are. We have come to you live from the beautiful city of New Orleans in Louisiana at the United Public Radio Network at 107.7 FM and the UFO Paranormal Radio Network at 105.3 FM. We're on Roku, YouTube, and Facebook. We love you all very much. Y'all go forward. Have a wonderful week. See you next Monday. Namaste.